Now, before we leave the topic of garbage collection, the iDisposable interface and all that stuff, I want to talk to you about the using statement. And so this video is entitled Using the Using Statement. And before we talk about it, I want to kind of lay a little groundwork here. First of all, and by the way, this is going to be a two-part video, no doubt. There's one aspect of programming that you may have already noticed just a little bit, and that is programming can be confusing. Now, pretty much every time you get a new idea thrown at you, you kind of go through that stage of, what? Now, what is this and why would I use it? And this doesn't make any sense. And then slowly the light begins to flicker and then it comes on, right? The using statement is one example. But it has an additional level of confusion because using as a keyword is used in two different places to do two different things. That's kind of interesting, right? There is that using directive that we can put at the top of our code module that prevents a programmer from having to explicitly name or explicitly use a fully qualified name for a method that's in a particular namespace. For example, we put at the very top up there using system.collections, using system.windows.forms to get to our message box and those sorts of things. So the using directive goes at the top. Well, then there's a using statement that we use to create a block of code that's tied to an object that basically encapsulates an object, and it implements the iDisposable interface kind of automatically for us. What it really does is it causes that object's dispose method to be called automatically whenever that method block ends. Pretty neat stuff. Now, Microsoft highly recommends you use this if you're coding in a situation where it'll work for you. Now, this is only really useful for objects whose lifetime does not extend beyond the method in which the objects are constructed. So, if you've got a method where you run the method and part of that method it creates or it instantiates an object of a class, you manipulate that object, and then as soon as that method's over, you no longer need that object. You should be using the using statement, okay? Just remember that the objects that you instantiate when you're using this using statement must implement iDisposable interface, all right? Now, let's look at some code, some very, very simple code to help you go through this process. Now, I'm going to open up Visual Studio 2012, a Windows Forms application, and I'm going to name it Using Example. Now, you will find this code, Using Example, the project, the solution, out there in your work files folder. So I'll just click OK and start this up. And we're going to write just a little bit of code. We're going to create one class, and then we're going to write some code with the using statement to demonstrate how this thing's working and how it's behaving. When you get your head around this part of it, it's going to be a lot easier for you to understand how and when to use this. So I'm just going to put a single button on my form, just like we've done in a lot of exercises here. And in the button click event, this is going to be my one method right here. Okay, this button click event, I'm going to basically create a object, instantiate an object of a class, and then we'll see it, the dispose, automatically get called. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I need to create a class. Now I'm going to show you something here. Everywhere else in the course, I've gone over here to Solution Explorer, created a separate class file. Just want you to know and see. You'll see a lot of examples like this out in Microsoft's documentation. I can create a class in this same module here. Okay, I'll create the class car, and I will implement iDisposable on this class. And so now we need to first of all, before we do anything else, let's implement iDisposable. We'll put a public void dispose method, and that will satisfy the iDisposable interface. All right, and when dispose gets called, we're just going to do a little message box, and we're just going to say dispose was called. All right, pretty straightforward if you code it right. Okay, so there's our message box. So what's going to happen with our class here, with our car? We're going to first create a property. We'll do a public property, a string called object name, and we'll just call get and set. Very straightforward, simple. Then we're going to do a constructor. So we'll do public car, not var, car, and we'll use a string data type, and we'll pass in a string here. And obviously we're going to give the object a name, and we're going to set object name equal to whatever they passed in. All right, and we're not going to do any big checking on it in our set or anything. We're just going to trust everybody, and everybody's honest here, right? Of course. So notice now we've got a class. We're implementing iDisposable, and implementing, we have a dispose method here, and we're going to see when this method gets run because dispose will be called, right? Well, what we need to do now is create an instance of this object within a method and see that the using statement is going to take care of that magic for us. So I'm going to end this. This will be the end of part 1. Join me in part 2, and we'll take a look at how this is going to behave.